Hi everyone, we're going to be doing a summary of chapter 3 today. It's Dr. Jekyll is quite at ease. We've already done a summary of chapter 1, which is the story of the door, where we hear the terrible incident as recounted by Mr. Enfield to Utterson on their Sunday walk of the man trampling calmly over the child. And then we've already done also a summary of chapter 2, which is the search for Mr. Hyde, where Utterson basically stalks this doorway to try and encounter Mr. Hyde and speak to him about his connection with Jekyll. So we've done those two, and we're now on to chapter 3. Now chapter 3 is exceptionally small. It's literally about 2 pages long, and it's focusing on one conversation. So it happens 2 weeks after chapter 2, and it's Dr. Jekyll has a dinner party, and he invites some of his close friends to come to this party, and Mr. Utterson is one of them. Once the party is over and some of the key figures leave, Mr. Utterson decides to stay and just sit and have a chat with his friend Dr. Jekyll. This isn't unusual according to the text. It happens every so often, but obviously Mr. Utterson has a bit of an agenda this evening. He wants to ask Jekyll about his connection to Hyde and kind of push for it. Now, as the title of this chapter suggests, Dr. Jekyll is quite at ease. He seems to take this quite within his stride, and he doesn't seem to be too bothered by it. So we're going to have a look at some of the key quotations as well, but let's have a quick look at the start of the chapter. One thing that's interesting is that this is our first interaction with Dr. Jekyll. We haven't actually heard anything from the fiction about Dr. Jekyll yet. We don't know what he looks like. We've encountered Utterson, we know what Enfield looks like, but we haven't encountered Dr. Jekyll. So a good quote to start us off on page 14 is that the man had every mark of capacity and kindness. So in describing Dr. Jekyll, we have some positive descriptions there. He's a man of kindness. He seems to have capacity to do well or to help others. And it says that he cherished for Mr. Utterson a sincere and warm affection. So basically, the men are good friends. Dr. Jekyll seems like a pleasant man. All is well and normal in Victorian London with these two Victorian gentlemen. The discussion of the will starts to take place. So Utterson just basically brings up the will, and Jekyll is a little bit annoyed about this. He says, you need to stop going on about this. You're nearly as bad as Lanyon. And then he describes Lanyon as being a Hyde-bound pedant. A Hyde-bound pedant. Basically, like being pedantic means you're very focused on the specifics and the details. So he considers Lanyon to be pedantic and kind of annoying and disruptive. And he describes the fact that Lanyon refers to Dr. Jekyll's research as scientific heresies. It's another great quote halfway down the page there. These scientific heresies basically mean that Lanyon believes that Jekyll is pursuing research which goes against normal doctrine, normal expectations of scientific research. And this annoyed Jekyll. So it's a little bit of a glimpse into the fact that Lanyon, fell out with Jekyll because of his pursuit of unusual scientific realms, which we later find out to be the splitting of an individual into their good and evil selves. It continues though with an interesting little response from Dr. Jekyll. When Utterson mentions Hyde and mentions the fact that he actually met with Hyde, there's a great quote. It says, Dr. Jekyll grew pale to the very lips, and there came a blackness about his eyes. So a man who on the same page was described as being capable of kindness, and now has a blackness about his eyes. And this idea of the blackness is supposed to be that inner evil, perhaps, maybe even Hyde, that is slowly kind of creeping out at the mention of him. And the other thing is, it continues with Jekyll saying that he is in a strange position. He says a very strange position that he's been put in. And Utterson doesn't really understand what this means, but it's a subtle hint towards the idea of he is split. He is both people, obviously. So he's keeping this secret from his close friend Utterson. He doesn't explain the truth. The most important quote by far in this chapter comes at the top of page 15. The moment I choose, I can be rid of Mr. Hyde. Right? Jekyll says this to Utterson. Seems exceptionally confident in this. The moment I choose, I can be rid of Mr. Hyde. He's basically saying to him, don't worry about this Hyde. I don't feel any way in control by him. He doesn't have anything on me. He's not going to blackmail me. I can choose to be rid of him. Don't worry about it. And then he continues by saying he actually has a great interest in poor Hyde. and that's repeated quite a few times in the same chapter at the end there. I have a very great interest in poor Hyde. And he kind of sets up Mr. Hyde to be someone that he's helping or that he is taking care of, as opposed to someone who is controlling Jekyll. Because remember, it seemed to Utterson that Hyde was controlling Jekyll. So Jekyll flips it and says, actually, I can be choose to rid of him, don't worry about him, he shouldn't be a concern of yours. The chapter ends with a really important promise. Basically, Jekyll says to him, I need you to promise me that you will enact the will that I have written. You will do what I've asked you to do, and that you'll see justice take place. If I die or disappear, you must do what I've asked you to do in the will. And the very final two words of the chapter from Utterson, who's supposed to be a loyal, upstanding, Victorian gentleman, is, I promise. So Utterson makes a promise to his friend that he feels he needs to keep, as expected at the time. That's the chapter. It's a little conversation. It's our first introduction to Dr. Jekyll, but it gives us an idea about who the man is. It also has subtle hints that there being something hidden behind this front of respectability, especially that blackness around the eyes and the paleness of his lips. And there may be also a sense of overconfidence or arrogance when he says, the moment I choose, I can be rid of Mr. Hyde. And that obviously grows to not be the case, and we find out later that Hyde begins to take control. Now that's chapter 3. And we'll move on to chapter 4 next week, which will be the murder of a prominent politician in London, and a very, very important chapter for us to understand Hyde. Thanks.